Hello everyone. In the last video of ReactJS documentation, we have learned about lifting setup. So, lifting setup is a concept in ReactJS where if we have multiple component, we always try to keep our state at the root level or close to the parents. So, closest parents is the one which is the place we keep our state. What we mean is uh, if we have multiple component and if that component has also another child component, we keep our state at the we try to keep our state at the parent component so we can pass those state to child component. We have seen example of this where if we put some either Celsius or Fahrenheit temperature, it will display if the water will boil or not. Let's say we put 12 or um, 99. We know that water usually boil at 100 degrees Celsius, so it will display that the water would not boil. If we say 100, it says that the water would boil, or more than 100 like 120 also water will boil. And we give this example using two component. One is boiling verdict where we pass the temperature as a Celsius, and we have these two temperature input where we take the temperature from the user, and every time the temperature value get changes, we convert to Celsius temperature and Fahrenheit temperature. So if Fahrenheit temperature get changed, then we convert this Fahrenheit to Celsius. If Celsius get changed, we convert it into Fahrenheit, and we use this function here. So in this video we're gonna look into composition and inheritance. Usually in React.js we always use the composition. We don't see any example of inheritance, and Facebook also don't recommend using inheritance. So it's like the inheritance to reuse the code between component. But here if you notice that if in the below it says that Facebook use thousands of component, but they haven't found any cases where would recommend to use a inheritance hierarchy. So they will always use the composition. So what composition is, let's say we have this fancy border component, and inside this fancy border component we can pass multiple um, uh, input also. What it means is like if we pass this fancy border, and if we say children load here, if you notice that props.children, it will give us all these elements here whatever available. So we can see an example if we want to understand better. So what we mean is, let's say we create another component called composition, and let's say we use this fancy border itself. We need to import the ReactJS, and let's export this. And now what we can do is like we can use this fancy border to our welcome dialog. So let's create this welcome dialog. Now here we need to import this previously fancy border, so we should keep in composition. Let's keep it the same in this fancy border. and then we import and then export this. And here we can see this welcome dialog has this fancy border. We pass as a blue as a color, and here we use props dot color, which is used here as a class name. So currently we don't have any class name, so we didn't import our CSS code. We can write our CSS code later also. It's not topic for this video. And we have these children, so we pass these children, all the children here, all these thing as a children, and then we load those children on that page, and we can just import this welcome dialog on our index page. We'll sorry for that. So we're gonna import this dialog box here, welcome dialog. um, say from welcome dialog. So if we now look into the page, we see that this welcome, everything is getting loaded. So first is welcome and thank you for visiting the spacecraft. We can write our CSS if required. So there is a title and this dialog message in our .css. So if here, if you notice, we have this index CSS. We can write our all the CSS code, which I will it will be something like, let's say we have this fancy border, right? So if we have this fancy border, we can write background color. If we write this, then if you notice that it will gonna load the CSS. So it's not that difficult. Another example is this one. So instead of passing as a children here, what we can do is like we can pass in different way also. What I mean is, let's say what we can do is like here, if you see example on the left, we pass another component, we pass another component. So let's write some small component. So let's say constant, let's say welcome. So we can write this whole welcome component here, and we can say left equal to, so if you notice that this is also work, so we can pass the left sorry, and this can be our right component. So we can say so we can say right equal to this component is a dialog. So now we pass this left and right, right? So if we go to fancy border, we can, instead of this, we can say right, it will gonna print the right one. If we say left, it will print the left one. So that's how it work, and we can pass anything. This component can be anything. We can pass the any kinds of data also inside this, which will also work. So and this also works for class component, not only the functional component. So this is a class component example. I will leave it for you guys to try it one. Hope this video is useful, and this is a very important concept you learn in this. Do some practice on this as well, because we will gonna see that in single component we're gonna pass multiple component here. Let's say for example we have a table component, right? We're gonna pass a button, left button, right button, or action button, so something like that. If we have a dialog, in the dialog we're gonna pass header, footer, or all this thing which we can pass here. And we can create this component as a different file or different helper file, everything, and that will gonna be really useful. Hope this is useful. Thank you very much.